Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Ben. Welcome to another episode of the Bonnie Rackham. We are now on to episode 4 of season 4. So yes, without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Get us underway.
Okay, so yeah, let's start off with a title. So this one I am going to call It Is What It Is. So yeah, this will be one of those times I give you the titles and I sort of give you a bit more about why I've called it when we come across it in the rundown. It's obviously part of an Anne quote, from this episode, but I think it sums up the theme of this whole episode quite well. None of our people are in the best situation right now, not in a place of their choosing, but it sort of is what it is and they're having to make the best of what they got. But yeah, I'll come back to that again briefly with the relevant scene. So yeah, without further ado, let's get a rating sorted and a brief summary.
First item.
So yeah, this one is written by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Lisa Schultz-Boyd. And it is directed by Steve Boyum, who is back in the director's chair. Last time we saw him was the fantastic season 2 finale. So yeah, another one of those great directors. His episodes are always really good, I'm sort of starting to notice. So yeah, a lot has changed this episode, a lot of moving parts. The update next episode, will feature most of our guys in somewhere completely new, location-wise. So Jack sets up an explosive distraction to help Vane make his escape, while informing him this is goodbye, as he and Anne have other plans. Vane's rescue mission is taken over by Edward Teach, and comes up with his own fiery diversion tactic to see them slip away unnoticed. Woods-Rogers and Eleanor continue their getting-to-know-you part of their complex dynamic. Walrus Crew are captured by a community of former slaves known as the Maroons, led by a ruthless queen who Flint can see is not someone they can reason with, and he has seemingly lost all hope for survival. Silver, however, sees they may have an ally in the Queen's daughter Maddie. Two new characters with complex dynamics of their own we'll get into in the discussions, and with an interesting tie-in to Nassau. Just another outstanding episode. I'm honestly not sure if we're ever going to fall under a 9 rating again from now on. If episode 2 was 9.4 and last episode was 9.2, then I'm going to split the difference a bit and give this one a 9.3 rating. I think that probably about right. Yeah, just phenomenal stuff to get into. New characters to meet, some great explosive action. So yeah, let's just get into it and get into our character deep dives.
Next item.
Okay, so let's start off mostly on Nassau with our sort of ranger crew, and then Vane and Teach will kind of branch off doing their own thing. No Max this episode, no Max. Okay, so we start off in the fort and Jack and Anne are in there with Vane. Both they're loyal to the end, the three of them now, despite season 1's hiccup. But of course, not everyone has the same sentiment. Old former allies are after a piece of Vane and that bounty. I love the Ranger crew back together, but I hate that it's so short-lived for them. Yeah, so Jack's had enough. As this sort of talked to Anne within a bit, his reality really has come crashing down these last couple of episodes, hasn't it? And he's heard enough talk now from outside these doors. Men trying to talk him round so, they can have a go at Vane. And he orders the door opened and we panic a minute and we think, oh God, surely not. Nope. Jack just takes the pistol out. Boom, shoots the guy in cold blood. Jack doesn't get these cold kind of badass moments too often. He's usually coming up with the ideas, isn't he? He's coming up with ideas or providing much needed kind of sarcasm and wit. But yeah, damn, he's not playing here. Yeah, a lot of his frustrations and anger are coming out on behalf of the situation they're in and everyone's lack of loyalty. Anne, who's sort of been quietly observing as she does, she ponders aloud, why just Vane? Could have been any of them singled out on the island. How come he's the only one they can't forgive? And yeah, Vane, they still not worked it out yet. I'm surprised sort of between the three of them. Eleanor's name hasn't come up, but I guess, they think she's long gone by now, so probably no reason it would, I guess. But yeah, Vane knows that crowd outside the door is just going to grow. They need to do something quick and he needs to get out there. So yeah, Featherstone joins them and yeah, their crew, as in Jack's, aren't too happy with Vane still being there. They know trouble's about to come and they want him gone. Yeah, Vane sort of half-heartedly suggests a plan of defence, trying to keep their newly formed kind of union somewhat intact, but Jack knows. He knows that's it. The fight to defend Nassau is over. this is happening. I can't help but kind of feel for him a little bit when he says, you know, a really dejected and a kind of realistic, it's over. Like, it's over, it's done. He says all that remains is that they escape the fort and, you know, survive in this moment. But Featherstone remarks, you know, all the exits are covered and Hornigold will have the tunnels watched. So Jack comes up with an idea to manufacture a new exit. So yeah, Jack just continuing his rise. You know, his pride is going to be a bit of a blip, you could say, for him and Anne very soon. But with something to do and to fight against, as I said last episode, it's always arguably a stronger Jack for me. And, you know, a man just more in his element and showing his strengths. So yeah, Jack returns to Vane after having set up the explosive, informs him it's ready to blow in minutes. Yeah, a really fantastic scene, this one. I love this one. Yeah, so much history between them all, you know, from what we've seen, so much history off screen that we never got to see. So yeah, Vane and Jack, you know, they say their goodbyes. Jack says he's lost years of his life the last few months trying to restore this place. So yeah, he'll be goddamned if that new governor is going to inherit the fort in peak condition. You know, stay petty, Jack. We love you. Yeah, getting that feud set up well already from sort of Jack's side. Jack informs Vane they'll cover his escape, to which a confused Vane asks, "You're not coming?" And yeah, almost unconsciously, you know, countering Teach's slander against his reasons for loyalty last episode, Jack basically says he knows he's not Teach's favourite person, doesn't want to be minding his P's and Q's, looking over his shoulder, basically, you know, is what he's getting at. You know, and when Vane says he'd never let anything happen, you know, to Jack in regards of Teach, but Jack says he won't be a ward of Vane's either. You know, he's achieved too much, and maybe, you know, that very brief chat with Anne last episode in regards to his and Charles's dynamic is in his mind. Yeah, he's stepping up, you know, he's stepping up. He wants to be his own man, create his own legacy, a very strong part, you know, of Jack's arc up until now, but especially going forwards. Of course, he'll always have his idols, strong men he looks up to and wants to stand beside. An observation, you know, Anne will make her quite a way off, and we know he will come to embrace standing side by side with Teach. But right now, in this moment, maybe sensing him and Anne would be a bit of a third wheel in this situation, not what he's wanting. So yeah, Vane wonders, what will you do? You know, what will you do? Will you take pardons? And Jack admits he's not sure. Says whatever happens, him and Anne will be taken care of. And Vane works it out pretty quickly, and he asks how much they took. And I love Jack's, I love that. It's just as if to say, yeah, we're good, we're going to be alright. Another funny little Sassel Jack moment I always love is when one of the guys, you know, one of his men, sort of yells at him to hurry up, and he mumbles, "I never liked you." And so yeah, they truly say their goodbyes, and maybe on first watch it doesn't hit, but with hindsight, though they will briefly see each other again under really stressful circumstances, this is their proper goodbye, I think. It's almost as if they know, well, they sort of say in a minute, one or either of them isn't much longer for this world. You know, yeah, Jack even says, "I was going to say I'll see you soon," but we both know that would be a lie, wouldn't it? And Vane says, "Probably." Jack puts out a hand for a shake, but Vane, you know, pulls him in close and embraces him in a brotherly hug. And yeah, keeping it in well, but a clearly emotional Jack says, "Godspeed, Charles," to which Vane replies, "Fuck you, Jack." Almost brings a tear to my eye every time. Just the perfect way for these two brothers in arms to say their goodbyes. A lot of history to that phrase, you know, "fuck you, Jack," but said with so much respect and love in this moment. It's a perfect Vane goodbye. I couldn't imagine them writing it any other way after this scene, you know, after knowing this scene well now. Okay, so let's do the little Anne and Jack scene in the cave before jumping back to Vane and Teach. So yeah, Jack, he's not a happy man, you know, as he said earlier, it's all gone so wrong for him in the last few months, and when it seemed he finally had something building last episode, you know, some real momentum and support, it's just been cut short. And trying to be positive though, you know, keep his spirits up. She's suggesting places they could go. Yeah, he has a right face on him though, you know, and he has a sarcastic answer, a problem to every solution she's kind of, you know, making. And yeah, and delicate as always, Anne just says, "Fucking hell, Jack, is it really as bad as all that?" She wouldn't say it to him, but she's not going to be too enthusiastic about all this change either. Considering the Max factor, she's going through a breakup essentially right now. You know, she's basically saying it could be worse. Considering where we started, some people might even call that a success. Jack goes, "Fuck those people." Jack continues to brood and says they were so close to accomplishing something that would have written our names in the history books. Oh, you guys are in there, trust me. You guys are in there. But yeah, nice bit of a wink in the writing there. But yeah, this is where my episode of the title really ties in. Anne says, you know, it's so simple, and you know, it's such a commonly used phrase today, but it's something I've almost taken as a motto after hearing it. She says it ain't good and it ain't fair, but it is what it is. Yeah. Some things you just can't do anything about. It happens. Shit happens. No, it's often not fair. Circumstances out of your control. Hello, Editing Ben here. Right, so yeah, I tried to kind of explain just a little bit about what that quote meant to me. It's my, you know, I think everyone's got their black cells kind of quote that maybe means something a little bit more personal to them, and this is mine. For a little context, back in 2020, you know, when COVID first hit in March, I caught it like a lot of people, and it did a number on me. And still, kind of 4 years later, I've never been right. Yeah, 4 years later, I'm still wheezy, as you've probably heard. And maybe what you have or haven't seen. Let me just show you this. This is from the episode that you're watching now. And Jack informs Vane, you know, their cover hither skip. And Jack informs Vane, you know, their cover hither. And Jack informs Vane, you know, their cover hither escape. Fuck's sake. And Jack informs Vane, you know, they'll cover his. And Jack informs Vane they'll cover his. And Jack informs Vane they'll cover his. And Jack informs Vane that they'll cover his. I still just can't say words. Fuck me. And Jack informs Vane that they'll cover his escape, to which a confused ass. So yeah, that's a typical kind of outtake for me. Just trying words on the page. I wrote the words. I know what the words are, but just sometimes they will not go from brain to mouth. Like there's a malfunction somewhere. Don't know what did it. It just did a number on my brain, unfortunately. And you know, I've always had a bit of a funky brain anyway, but I could read words off a page. You know, I used to do drama in school and stuff, and I could remember long scripts and stuff. You know, I wouldn't stand a chance now. So yeah, trying to circle back to the quote. I don't want it to be too much of a tangent, because yeah, it ain't good and it ain't fair, but it is what it is. I could, and I did, and I was stewing on this for a while, and it really got me down, you know, and I kind of wasn't doing anything creatively, and I stopped kind of doing anything on the camera, and it really got me down. And then, you know, I watched the show through once. I did it as a reaction, and then I sort of watched it on my own time, maybe, I don't know, 5-6 months later. And yeah, you know, and I was sort of like, yeah, you know, she's right. It's not good. I've got some choices here. You know, I can sit and I can mope and I can go, yeah, I'll never do it again because that's how hard it is, what you just saw. Or I can kind of adapt and overcome. I can go, you know what, I like doing this. This is fun for me. This, you know, yeah, I don't get a lot of views. Sometimes I am talking to myself, but I like it. It's what I like to do. So yeah, I could give it up completely, or I can do my best with it. It's a real kind of trek sometimes to get there. You know, I got it after that take. And yeah, in sort of a little, hopefully little inspiration thing I'm trying to get to. Something may block your path. Your A to B path, something might happen that'll block it and you'll think, I cannot get from A to B anymore. But you can make a new path. You can find a new path. You can, you know, you might have to go a long way around it. Make some stops along the way. You might have to turn back a few times and be like, oh, no, it's not going to work this way. Start again. Try something else. You'll get there eventually. You will get there eventually. You just have to persevere and sort of make the best. So again, to sort of tie it all obviously back to the show. And after I watched that watch through, I happened to make like one of the best, most creative kind of projects I'm proudest of, you know, on this channel. A little kind of once upon a time sort of run through countdown I did. It's just like, all right, we can still do it. So yeah, my point is, what is my point? That's why I write a script. That is why I have to read from a script, because that also happens. Brain just goes, maybe I'll keep this in, maybe I won't, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of like, while I'm editing, like, yeah, let's see if we can do something that might be a little bit inspirational. And yeah, point is, you know, like Anne's saying to Jack, it is what it is. Let's get on with it, find a new way, find a new plan. Yeah, it's all gone wrong with the gold and with the fort, and yeah, all our plans have kind of come crashing down. I've lost my lover, but this is where we are. We have got this block in the path now, and we have to find a new path. Let's do it. So, yeah, anyway, that's why, you know, I just wanted to go into that a little bit more. That's why that's a quote that means a lot to me personally. But yeah, anyway, back to previous me, trying to get a sentence out. But, you know, what Anne is saying, I think, you know, and the message I certainly take from it, is what is the point in overanalyzing it? Driving yourself mad, getting yourself low, getting yourself angry over what ifs, and, you know, it's happened, it's done. Reevaluate your plans, your goals, adapt and move on. Again, it's almost a throwaway quote that it's so simple. From the mouth of Flint or Teach, you know, they judge it up a bit and, you know, add some frills and some metaphors in there. In fact, Flint sort of pretty much does a little bit later on, but the fact that it's Anne saying it and it's, you know, and how she just gets to the point of it, of what she wants to say, no dancing around, just bam, there it is. And yeah, and Anne says as a final thought for them both, it's time to leave Nassau behind. Nassau with no Jack Rackham and Anne Bonny, we wonder what is next for these guys. And yeah, they will not be retiring to the interior in peace, that is for sure. Yeah, my faves are going through it these last couple of episodes, and some great stuff with them to get into the second half of the season. But yeah, I'm going to give Jack another MVP nomination for staying loyal to Vane until the final moment, you know, at risk of himself and Anne, and for coming up with a strong escape plan in blowing up the fort wall as a distraction. But okay, yeah, I think that's those guys. So let's go over quickly to the Vane and Teach scenes. It's mostly action with these guys, so not much to deep dive into. So yeah, great little scene of Vane fleeing after Jack blows the wall, but he's cool as a cucumber as per usual. A few people at first look like they're about to fight him, but a glare from him, you know, gets him past. But eventually a party is waiting to ambush him. A bit of swashbuckling later, and yeah, Vane is surrounded, outnumbered and in trouble. Enter one of the most badass bailouts in the show. Teach says, not my son, thank you very much. And yeah, the shot of him, you know, coming in, firing the pistol when the music hits right. Yeah, absolutely epic little moment. So yeah, they fight the good fight and absolutely wreck everyone. Good to finally see the notorious Blackbeard in action with his 4 pistols, I think I counted. Yeah, great team up. So yeah, they're on board a ship now at this point, and yeah, Vane and Teach, though they're stuck in the bay, Woods-Rogers' fleet are blocking their escape. And Teach says they're working on something to even the odds a little bit, and he points Vane's attention to Rogers' main ship, the Elysia. Eleanor is making herself known, making herself visible out on deck, and Vane now understands what this is all about, why he's Nassau's most wanted right now. Teach almost seems a little amused, not in a nasty way, but I think this is maybe a long-awaited "I told you so," you know, for him. Though he'd never say it, I don't think. Yeah, all those years they lost over Vane's love and loyalty to her, yeah, it's definitely got to sting, I think, for Charles here. But yeah, a lot must be going on in his head. Actions and reactions on actions and reactions with him and Eleanor at this point. A never-ending cycle, it would seem, that still has a couple more spins left before it's broken for good. Okay, yeah, so later at night now, their final little scene, and yeah, they're both below deck, and Teach has a great diversion plan he's been setting up. Like I say, we can see Fire seems to be involved, but we're not sure where he's going with this. And he chats to Vane about Eleanor some more. Seems Teach has given her a bit of an MVP nod himself. Says she's due some credit, you know, way she turns her seemingly hopeless situation around and convincing her new ally to turn the world against Vane. I mean, yeah, I can't disagree on that front. I think in his amusement, though, he's underestimating her a little bit. No Teach and Eleanor scenes, I realised, you know, in this show, in the whole run. What an interesting conversation and reunion that would have been. Either side of Vane's end. I'm not ready to say the word yet. We're not there yet. We're getting too close, though. Teach asks him, you know, if forced to choose in this moment between escape and her death, where is his head at? And yeah, Vane knows she was out on deck on purpose, you know, so he sees her, and therefore to provoke him into making a mistake, acting on emotion. Yeah, you know, I think he's mostly right. And he says that what matters most is that they get away with their fleet intact. When Charles Vane sees past his anger to achieve the greater end, how did that happen? Blackbeard asks. And Vane answers, I was told a lesson once by her. And yeah, wonder what he'd do in hindsight. You know, Vane, I mean, we know Teach would fight in this moment with an aim to killing Eleanor, you know, with hindsight, knowing what's to come for Vane. But I wonder if Vane could ever kill her. I mean, it is something Jack and Teach will sort of muse over next season. You know, is there still a little something there despite everything? But yeah, perhaps a discussion for then. But yeah, okay, so yeah, great scene now, brilliant ship action, a great play from Teach. So yeah, Vane is on a dark ship with a white flag flying, heading towards Rogers' fleet, just looking a badass as per usual. Just the casual way he hops off a flaming ship. Zach McGowan, I think I've said it before, Zach McGowan is just born to play these sort of just badass characters. He just has that vibe about him, and the fire is ignited and him and his crew jump overboard. Despite anticipating first that this wasn't in fact a white flag peaceful move, what Woods-Rogers hasn't taken into account is the little extra booby trap bonus. And you know, he tells them all to aim at its hull to sink it before it, you know, reaches one of their ship. But Teach, you know, ever the seasoned pirate, has set up a little, I don't know what you call it, is it called traps, is it? I'm not sure, not bombs, but sort of fireballs of shrapnel that kind of go off in all directions when they hit the heat source. Yeah, and Woods-Rogers can only watch as, yeah, this lone fiery ship takes out one of his fleet in a blaze of glory, giving Vane and Teach the opportunity to quietly slip away into the night. For his badass entrance on the beach and coming to help Vane off the island, and coming up with a great distraction to allow them to slip away, Edward Teach is going to get himself an MVP nomination. Okay, so yeah, let's move on to Eleanor and Woods-Rogers and those events, just discussed sort of from their side a bit. So yeah, they start off, they're still on the Alicia, just off the bay of Nassau. And Eleanor, she seems comfortable now, she's dressed well and walking freely around. Definitely been a shift in this relationship, and something very interesting at this point I always notice with Eleanor, her voice. You know, does anyone else notice it? Her tone is softer, it's very innocent and demure. She's not talking like we're used to with her. She's not swearing anymore. She's minding her P's and her Q's, you know. I get the sense, like, just when, you know, when she was on Nassau, how she effed and jeffed and kind of talked like I talked a little bit common. You know, like she was one of them, like she was a pirate. But now she's being very feminine and appeasing and sweet, submissive almost. Not sure how deliberate it is or if I'm overthinking it a bit, but the change is definitely there and I always notice it and it's working. Is it gameplay or is she trying to be something she's not? If you can't beat them, join them kind of thing, you know, and try and fit into this new role that she's inevitably stuck with. Maybe a bit of both going on, but I definitely think it's a very conscious, might even go so far as saying smart, you know, subtle tactical move from her. So yeah, Woods-Rogers admits to her, despite a strong crew of officials on his side available to him at any time, he wouldn't trade, you know, 10 more of them for one of her. So she's proven far too valuable. Of course, she called the play on the pardons last episode, which is well in effect by this point, and she certainly seems to have his favour. But I think she's still a bit wary of him. You know, still more of a gameplay, using him to achieve her revenge at this point. But then he flatters her a bit. He's come to realise he does need her, as she said he would, you know, a couple of episodes ago. So is he playing a bit of a flirt game too? I sort of said before, such a complicated couple of characters anyway, but put them together and honestly, their motive towards each other, although we're tipping towards a fondness, I think, but still just both parties playing just a bit of a chess game here, a very kind of yeah, both saying what they need to each other, I think, to sort of achieve their ends right now in this moment. So yeah, after some flattery, and yeah, he pretty much confirms her as his partner in this endeavour, as her right-hand woman, and yeah, and that's exactly what she wanted, I think. So yeah, it's a little bit later now, and they're on deck, they're mulling over sort of progress, and he's noticed that she's not asked about Vane, and yeah, she's definitely playing a smart game. You know, again, she's playing it coy and subtle, you know. Oh, Charles, I hadn't thought about it. Not the only thing on my mind at all. I trust you'll let me know when something happens. You know, part of me almost tempted to give her the MVP nomination for this subtle method acting and game she's playing at this time. And to be fair to her, though, she does warn him at this point. You know, she warns him she's got enemies on Nassau, enemies that will make his life harder in knowing he's taken her as lead counsel. Yeah, she says she doesn't know what her future holds here, but can sense his success is key to it. Oh, Eleanor. Yeah, it is. It's that gut-wrenching foreshadowing again. Truthfully, deceitfully, they are leading, trusting, and following each other to their ultimate ends. You know, Eleanor's literally. And yeah, his all gets a bit more complex, obviously, with Flint and Jack's involvement. So I can't give Eleanor full blame for his kind of downfall, or credit if you want to say it that way. But yeah, calling back to what I was saying about Eleanor, she thinks she's reeling in a fish a little bit here, I think, to help achieve her ends, not realising she's got a piranha on the end of the line. Yeah, anyway, they witness the explosion of the fort, but there's not much really to go into it from their side, but a nice shot of it in the distance. So they're in his cabin again, and we get a little teaser of Mrs. Hudson listening at the door, but still not quite time to get into her yet, so we'll leave that as a little teaser. But that's a very that's suspicious kind of tease, is well done. So yeah, in the office, Woods-Rogers, curious as to what Eleanor thinks her enemies on the island would say to him about her. You know, the conversation is continuing. Again, to be fair to her, she's being truthful. She pretty much tells him, yeah, they call her untrustworthy, tell him she'd turn on anyone at any time, no matter how close they are to her. Yep, all truth. A little concerned, he asks would they be right. And she hesitates and doesn't answer, which is, yeah. And it looks like we're going to go back a few steps with this Bond. He's already said, you know, lie to me and it's back to England, become a hindrance, you're off. So yeah, she's just told him, I could be a problem for you, I could be a big stop in all of this. I don't have the best history of loyalty. But yeah, he gives her props for what she achieved on Nassau, in spite of all obstacles. That's fair. And he chose her counsel in spite of all he knew about that. So that's fair. So yeah, just echoing what I've already really said about these two, really. Who's using who? Is this pairing much more suitable for each other than, I ever thought before this rewatch? One thing that does become obvious in this episode, in this scene, these guys are hooking up soon. That charge is kind of evident. Again, with characters like these, maybe we'll never truly know or understand original motive, but we can see it's going to happen. It's at this point they're alerted to Vane and Teach's distraction, but other than getting the joy of, witnessing a pissed off Woods-Rogers, not really much of it to go over from their side of it. But otherwise, yeah, I think that will do with these two for today. They're building their development well, though, and slowly and surely, I am finding myself more curious this watch through, taking more time to focus on these two. Again, not my favourite pairing, but such an interesting slow burn build up. I think they make it to land next episode and might be a meeting of minds with Max, but I might have forgotten a step. I might be an episode ahead. But yeah, either way, we'll check in again with them next episode. Okay, so now we move on to Maroon Island and discussing Flint and Silver. But we will, of course, meet 3 new players and find out an old player has been playing a game of his own since the beginning. So this will scatter about a little bit more discussion-wise from character to character. I'm mostly just going to stick to chronological order as the scenes happen. We'll be jumping about too much with plot. So we open the episode with our Walrus Crew. They're recharging on this new beach, making camp in this picturesque, seemingly deserted island. Absolutely gorgeous location they found here. And yeah, Flint joins Silver for a little catch-up. And yeah, things are much more civil now between them after last episode. And Silver has been thinking about the pardons, and he's worked out that someone pretty powerful with a lot of resources, money and support is behind it. Of course, the pardons are playing a prominent part in this episode in all areas. For a lot of this season, actually, the pardons. And it will come up in discussion with Flint a little later, and Jack, either next episode or the one after. I can't remember if we have a little episode break with Jack and Anne. We might do, I can't remember. So yeah, Flint wonders, why he didn't bring up this sooner to him, and Silver remarks they weren't exactly on the best of terms recently, kind of had a lot going on, to which Flint agrees. So yeah, this is looking like a far more reasonable and logical Flint at this point anyway. So yeah, Silver says the men must be informed that, we could be returning back to a war in Nassau, and Flint informs him it's likely already over. He's called it, he doesn't know who Woods-Rogers is at this point, but he knows the way the negotiations will go. If they're as prepared as sort of Silver said with that much support, he's known this has been coming since the first episode, let's not forget, and a lot of his past, is coming to haunt him again. So yeah, we see Billy taking a moment by the stream, just catching a breath, and yeah, we get a great cut to 2 Maroon warriors kind of taking him by surprise. Great camera work here, with the reveal of the second man with a pistol to Billy's head. So, yeah, the rest of the crew, they realise they're flanked and outnumbered. They can't fight in this moment. Don't forget, they're still going to be very weak as well. And so they are led through the island towards the main camp. And Silver sort of asks Flint who they are, and we find out they're Maroons, escaped slaves. And yeah, this is based on some true history. There were pockets of people, communities who did kind of escape from slavery and make their own kind of safe havens on various islands and places. So Silver ponders, well, we've taken on slaves before, we've freed them, given a place. Won't that put us in good stead? But of course, as Billy sort of says, and we'll learn, it's not as simple as that, unfortunately. One of the crew makes a run for it, and yeah, we see these guys have got the island on lock. They know every inch, they've laid traps. It's almost like these two guys that are kind of making chase. They're sort of calmly leading this guy to the trap that he falls into. So yeah, it seems like if they try and make an escape, it is not going to be easy at all. So yeah, they approach the camp, and again, just amazing set designs and visuals. Wooden huts, bridges, vast cliffs in the distance. As our guys can see, this is a well-run, well-lived-in operation. So we ask, who is in charge here? To my knowledge, the Maroon Queen is never given a name, but she has a formidable presence and, yeah, an often understated performance by Moshidi Motsuhiga. She asks who's the captain and Flint gives his name, and she's heard of him, I think it's safe to say, by her reaction, but maybe not obvious until the Mr. Scott reveal at the end. But remember, he was never the biggest fan of Flint's plans, so yeah, possibly influencing her, I think. But yeah, she speaks to Silver as quartermaster instead, and wants to know why they're here, and he tells the truth. It's by chance, not design, we come in peace, sort of thing. And, he says he gives his word, and she says, were you me, would you wager the lives of all those in your care on the word of a pirate? And yeah, straight away, we can see, oh, this is not going to be an easy getaway. And maybe for the first time, it's not as simple as simply rooting all out for our Walrus Crew to overpower and win the day against the tyranny of evil men. We will see these are very wrong people who have found a safe haven. It's not simply, yay, pirates fighting for a greater good anymore, corrupt civilization bad. There's another really complex element of slavery to now factor in. And yeah, we'll come back to that with the introduction of Maddie in a bit. So yeah, a random pirate is chosen by the Queen for interrogation and to instill some fear, and the others are sort of caged. And yeah, Flint has seen this leader for what she is, it seems. Knows because he can identify. He'll go into that in a bit, but yeah, he's looking in a mirror almost in terms of understanding how she's going to be playing this as someone in charge of these people. And yeah, we meet another little character and a tie into Treasure Island, and we meet Ben Gunn. A guy who's seemingly only one of the last crew that they see's left, clearly been through it, very traumatised, says they'll either all be put to hard labour, the kind that, they escape from, an eye for an eye sort of thing as the Queen sees it, or death is the only other option. And yeah, Billy says we need to get out of here rapidly. And we just cut to Flint, who's just not looking too hopeful. And yeah, Ben Gunn gives Billy, and in turn us, a bit more info on the Queen, and tells him there is a king somewhere. And Silver's sort of looking out, and he's seen her daughter Maddie walking about, and asks Ben Gunn about her. And yeah, looking like she's not completely settled in all the choices being made here, and they sort of catch each other's eye a moment. And yet Flint, who has been overhearing this intel from Ben Gunn, he sort of wanders on Silver's interest in Maddie. And this is where Flint is just looking done, looking like he's ready to call it a day. But Silver is confident fighting or fleeing both result in their death. So he says they need to be thinking up another option. Yeah, he's using his smarts. He says they can't all possibly be of one mind here. Despite how organised and, united they might seem, they can definitely relate to. Very rare the whole Walrus Crew are ever of one mind, so why should the people be here? He has a sense there's an ally to be made in Maddie. Billy, not quite the calmer, sane middleman of reason this episode. I mean, he's clearly scared and trying to think of a strategic way out. But unlike Flynn, I think he's underestimating their environment a bit. And yeah, he's talking escape plans through with Flint, but we'll see in a moment, he's just being humoured, trying not to break his spirit. And Silver remarks on it to him once Billy heads to the other side of the cage. Escaping is just not an option here, Silver says. But Flint says, look, it gives him a focus, keeps his mind off the fact that there might not be a better plan. Why would I want to take that away from him? And yeah, it's not sounding like our Flint here, is it? Normally I feel he just shut down a wasted thought. This is what we need to be doing. Not humouring something he never intend to use, like he's doing here. And yeah, it's at this point that Flint finds himself back in his daydreams, visions, however each viewer interprets it. As usual, gorgeous visuals and colouring. His and Miranda's boat, ride continues. Seems like he's been preparing himself to join her. He can't see a way out of it. Just clearly tired of fight after fight, struggle after struggle, while also in this state of just complete grief. And yeah, going back, to write what I said at the beginning of the season, Flint's seemingly just on a death wish right now. Wants all this over, wants to fight the unknown, and the way he sort of says, "I miss you." Oh, right in the feels. Seems like he's been torn in trying to say goodbye for a while, to let her go and for him to move on from this sort of stage of the grieving process and to move on with his life. But he just can't say goodbye to that small piece of her he's holding on to. So he sort of says, "What if I stay?" Desperation and defeat in our fearless leader at the moment. All his fight seemingly gone. Yeah, just really, really hard to see just a character like Flint in this place, in this dark place. So, yeah, it's the middle of the night now, and Silver is quietly sent to meet with Maddie, obviously at her instruction. And our first real look at this great character. Another resilient, strong woman to, add to all the others, who's, going to be a main player from here on in, pretty much. And yeah, it would seem she can see things are just not quite as simple as her mother sees them. Not quite as simple as her mother's made them out to be. She wants to know why they refuse pardons. She's obviously heard of that. And Silver explains every man has his reasons. He goes over them a bit. Of course, a big difference between Silver talking about his, their reasons not to take the pardons, their issues with England and civilization, to Maddie explaining the hell the people on her island have been through. Basically, she's sort of saying, "Oh, some of your men have a bit of resentment to England. Well, guess what? We have mothers separated from children here, wives taken from husbands, families torn apart for profit and slave labour." She's sort of saying our reasons are very different, but, it's very clear we can both see they do have some common ground here and a common enemy. Of course, yeah, it would be amiss of me not to briefly speak on the big main issue here of slavery. But yeah, it is very much tied in with everything going on here and with every decision Maddie and the Queen are making. It's tied into every character of colour that we've met, really. Max's past coming up recently, and obviously Mr. Scott's, we've done stuff with him from the first season. That history, yeah, is why the Queen is being so thorough and seemingly ruthless in this episode. They just have to be. Of course, they're wary. I sort of flip and reverse it and imagine these were the characters that we'd been following and rooting for since the start. We'd be agreeing with most of her choices. You can't take the risk, get these strangers gone. You've got a good thing here. And yeah, adding the factor, as I said, that Mr. Scott has very likely name-dropped Flint and all the trouble he causes. And I can understand where the Queen is coming from completely, albeit very cold and ruthless, the way she's sort of culling anyone that comes across the island. And Maddie asks, with hindsight now, would you still not take the pardons? And yet Silver, nervous to say the truth, knows she won't want to hear it, says, "We both parties hate England, but my captain wants England to see the anger and fear it, and says for whatever reason your mother would rather your men fear England." And she sort of ponders on that for a moment, and she sort of says a dismissive, "I see." Yeah, but it's definitely given her food for thought, even if she's playing a good bluff, sort of game here. Maddie is very different from her mother. She, at this point anyway, she doesn't want to be in hiding in the shadows anymore, it would seem. She wants to fight back for all that's been taken, from her people. Knows it's not as simple as us versus them in every case, like her mother has kind of simplified it down to for survival. And yeah, she wants to take a bit of a risk and maybe in the same point helping some more people. Yeah, another great character that I like and respect more each time with every watch. So yeah, when Silver returns to the cage, we learn, how alike Flint and the kind of Maroon Queen in this kind of they are as leaders. Though I do really parallel Flint with Maddie very strongly as well, though not in this current state, obviously. He knows how the Queen's thinking, though, for the better of her people, because he too has had to make the very same decisions as recent, as last episode, those harsh kind of choices he had to make there. And Silver tells him hopefully there is some dissension amongst them, something to be exploited. An interesting choice of word, from Silver, just after his chat with Maddie. It's a very Silver word, and still, very much we just want to get away. Let's turn them against each other and then leave them to it, sort of vibe I get from him at this time. But of course we know the dynamics of that will change, and they all will very much become one force, kind of involved in each other's kind of fight. So yeah, Flint pretty much shoots this idea down bleakly, Billy, he's happy to humour, it would seem, but he's being straight with John. Silver can see his head's got a bit, and asks him, where is he? Yeah, normally, something like this little gap would be an opportunity that Flint would jump on. So, Flint tells him a little bit about the pardons, how once upon a time, with Miranda, Peter and Thomas, he was fighting for the very thing he refused from Hornigold, and says inch by inch he's moved away from those things and forgot them all, but wonders if the civilization of Nassau isn't exactly what he tried to achieve so many years ago. So tough as a viewer from the outside, because yes, they are, but the man who's offering them to you is just another Ash by another name. The second you do something he doesn't like, will just turn, as we will see later in the season. So yeah, he says to forgive, to make order of chaos. I wonder if the pardons are the victory, and he wonders if the best thing he can just do is sit still and accept it. Let the inevitable happen, and let this be the end of Captain Flint. Toby Stephens delivers this so well, it's so quiet and defeated, tired. But Silver, he's having none of this though. Now at this stage, after all they went through last couple of episodes, again, more great growth with his character and how he's just truly all for the men and all for this brotherhood. Yeah, sure, escaping, getting away is his main goal, but he's also fully invested now as well, I think, in the cause a little bit. Again, maybe all they've been through the last couple of episodes on his mind, because he did ponder, didn't he, with Billy, on why they didn't take the pardons, even with no intent to honour them. But Flint's passion has definitely rubbed off on him, and he's just trying to get his captain back a little bit. And he says, nothing is inevitable here. I'm making some moves, and Flint smiles knowingly, and he just cuts him off, and he says, you're new to this. Being responsible for men's lives, but he knows what the Queen is facing right now. The weight of her people's welfare on her shoulders. She will not let us leave this place alive, he says, simply. She just simply won't. We'll all face certain death with our own lie. Billy, that he can fight his way out of it. Silver's own is that he can talk his way out of it. And he says, but for me, I don't know if I have any more lies left in me. Yeah, remember how I said earlier how wordsy Flint would make his kind of it is what it is speech? This is sort of that in this moment, I think, though much more defeatist than Anne's kind of use of it. Yeah, Flint, he's in a really hopeless place right now, and he's just ready to give up. Just no fight left in him at all, it would seem. But of course, this is Flint we're talking about. Yeah, you can never count him out. So yeah, I think along with Jack and Teach, I'm also going to give Silver an MVP nomination. He's keeping a cool head in this highly stressful situation. He's making plays, sowing seeds. He's doing his best to keep his captain from literally checking out. But yeah, so a quick little scene with Maddie and her mother. Yeah, the Queen is clearly planning on getting rid of all the Walrus Crew the next morning. Just brutal, matter of fact. And Maddie says her piece, thinks it will be a grave mistake. Again, she states they have a common enemy. Surely it makes sense just to play this out a little bit longer. See if we can get something going here. Again, yeah, I could sit here debating both sides of where they're both coming from with myself for ages. Because I see and I understand them both. Going by the times again, the Queen's reasons not to trust them, completely understandable. But set the situation in the modern day, and I sit much more in Maddie's corner. I can't speak for anyone else, but I do my absolute best, to take people as they come. No judgments, no assumptions. Every new person gets a blank slate. If you're a kind, good, nice person, we're cool. But if you're cold, malicious, nasty, etc., we're not going to get on, and I'll dip out. But I'm basing these decisions on your personality, nothing else. And that's sort of where Maddie is coming from. Yeah, obviously it's more complex than that because of the time and the situation we're in. But, instead of killing these guys who have quite clearly and unfortunately mistakenly come across us, why don't we at least hear them out, see if we can't take something back for ourselves, because they hate our enemy too. Like Silver, it mostly is a more selfish, let's see if we can use them for a greater end for us at this point. And again, it will get more complex from her side, and they'll get into each other's battles a bit more. But yeah, anyway, I feel I'm probably repeating myself a lot now with them. Yeah, such a complicated, delicate, new emotional dynamic now with the addition of the Maroons and mother and daughter not quite being of one mind at the moment. So Maddie brings up her father and says he knows these men might have sailed with them. Let's talk to him about it. And yeah, and this is where it's revealed who the Maroon King is. But yeah, before that reveal, a little earlier on in the episode, we get a very quick little scene on Nassau with Mr. Scott. He's lining up for his pardon. And yeah, Hornigold inquires to him after the slaves. Says after the explosion, they went missing. And Mr. Scott says, yeah, you know, I'll see to it. And yeah, my memory was correct. He set all this up playing a game as well. So yeah, with the bombshell that the Maroon Queen and Maddie have someone on Nassau as a double agent, it is, of course, Mr. Scott. And we cut to him escorting the slaves from the fort to a boat to obviously head towards the island. But a couple of, I think it's redcoats, come across them. Yeah, Mr. Scott, he tries to play it off, but shots are fired from both sides. And the redcoats are dealt with, but unfortunately, Mr. Scott has caught a stray bullet. And yeah, I mean, I spoke about this, you know, quite a bit back in Season 1. Season 1, Mr. Scott, and Season 3, Mr. Scott, are two very completely different characters for me. The only real plot hole kind of character development I don't really buy that was ever long term, you know, or think completely works when you sort of lay it out. But he had so much, you know, so little to do, I mean, last season. And I guess, you know, it makes sense to tie him into everything going on here. So yeah, I won't harp on about that anymore. We'll, of course, come back to some more great stuff on this island next episode. Yeah, lots more fantastic stuff to chat about this episode. Another couple of characters introduced. Maddie, as I say, will become a big player, and the Queen will play a vital role in the next few episodes. You know, Ben Gunn as well is going to pop back here and there. Kofi was also present, though not much for him to do until next season, I don't think. But yeah, let's get into our last item and get that MVP sorted.
Last item.
Okay, so we have, it's Silver, Teach, or Jack. Like last episode, I think it's pretty close, but just one nudging ahead by a pistol's width, or 4 pistols width. Yeah, I'm going to give Edward Teach his first MVP win. Although there is the argument that if Jack hadn't have blown up the wall and stuck with Vane at the fort in that moment, that he never would have reached Teach in the first place. I still think Teach deserves it for that badass entrance and the bailout on the beach. And then for coming up with the brilliant idea, you know, of the distraction with the burning ship. I'm sure that probably has a cool official kind of name, tactical name. But yeah, whatever you call it, he set all that in motion, Teach did. Showing his loyalty and love to Vane once more. You know, although it's not the way he wanted things to go down, Vane could be in, you know, a lot worse situations at this current time, if not for Teach. So, yeah, Teach picks up his first win. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I will make this goodbye very quick. Yeah, I will see you next week for episode 5, the halfway point of the season already, where things will really get going. So, yeah, see you guys soon. Take care. Peace out.